Hello everyone, I am Tom and today we're talking about George of the Jungle. So I started this with the mindset of, let's go back and watch a silly film from my childhood and see how it holds up. And for the first 10 minutes I was pleased that while I could see the more childish aspects of it, with me now being a 30-year-old trying pathetically to cling to some kind of youth, I was all for it and ready to settle in for a bit of a nostalgia trip and watch a nice little harmless comedy. If you're unaware, George of the Jungle is a parody or less realistic version of Tarzan. Well, I say less realistic. I mean, realistically, if a baby was left in the jungle, the gorillas would probably rip it all apart and feed on the succulent baby juices inside. But back to these first 10 minutes. The little animated intro was cool, and the film generally does feel like a cartoon come to life. It has that dumb logic where a guy can fall from a bridge and come back with only a few bandages, or the way that George can spin a lion on his finger. The way the film goes all meta and self-aware blew my mind as a kid. It was like when Bugs Bunny used to talk to the audience. Absolutely fucking insane.
They reacted with awe. I said awe. A-W-E. That's better.
And the film actually got a few laughs out of me to begin with, but I don't know if I was laughing because it was actually funny or because it was just so stupid that it made me laugh. I mean, come on, he has to fight off a lion which then turns into some kind of wrestling match. It's like, what the fuck? That's funny as shit. I don't know if it was just the weed though. Don't get me wrong, it is a bit of a sensory overload with all the sound effects and the film feels like it's right in your face. And it kind of goes without saying, but Brendan Fraser is just the man. The guy has to do some pretty stupid shit in this film, and he plays it with what all I can say is professionalism. I can see why he was eventually cast in The Whale. So with this first 10 minutes, I was actually starting to think I might love this film, but nostalgia is a powerful force, and after this fun little intro, it's mostly all downhill from here. For practically the next half hour, all we get are little sequences of cute animals and some humour which really feels like it's trying too hard. All it is just stuff like, oh, look at him talking to the cute little monkey who stands up to the lion, how adorable. Or, oh, he's got an elephant but he acts like a dog, how funny. And why does the CGI elephant look better in 1997 than some of the CGI these days? What the fuck is up with the eyes though? Look, I understand, as a kid you're watching this and not giving a fuck, just entertained by the moving images, and I know if you want to talk about these scenes on a story level, they're supposed to establish Ursula falling in love with George and blah blah blah, I fucking get it, alright. But this film does not translate from being a kid's film to a family film. There were moments in this I was just cringing and felt more anxious if someone walked in on me watching this than if I had fucking hub on me telly. And by the time we get to George and Ursula's little dance number, I was like, fuck me man, I think I'm ready to die now, please. The story isn't exactly complicated. The girl goes to the jungle, meets sexy jungle man, takes him back to the normal world, do the fish out of water thing, hilarity ensues, and then the jungle man has to go back to save the day, and because it's his true home. But even when George does get to the city, it still just feels padded with shit. Like, oh, let's salivate over naked jungle man, or oh, let's laugh at how he's wearing women's clothing because he doesn't know what clothes are. Although quite ahead of its time when the narrator mentions that Ursula being
of a conservative mind regarding gender roles, Ursula Stanhope wasted no time in taking George of the Jungle to a fine haberdasher.
Fuck me man, that joke is about 25 years too early. During one of these little city set pieces, George saves a guy who's hanging off a bridge. And I'm going to go on a little tangent here, which you've probably heard before, about the way films were made 30 years ago compared to how they're made today. And this is coming from a guy who's never made a film in his life. The whole bridge sequence is an okay action scene. It's not some groundbreaking piece of filmmaking or anything, but what it made me appreciate is, even with these shite films from back in the day, they always felt more real in a practical sense. I mean, you watch this and you know that there's a stuntman there. They filmed on location. It's not filmed in a studio where everything is perfectly choreographed and there's no real sense of danger. Not that I want someone to risk their lives to make a film, especially fucking George of the Jungle, but you want the audience to believe that there is an element of danger. And I'll be honest, I felt more worried for the guy hanging off this bridge than I did watching the Avengers have a big scrap in a room with a bunch of styrofoam and green screen. I probably sound like a bit of a fucking film snob, but You know, it's just a thought. But anyway, let's get back on topic to this pile of shit. I don't think they really knew what type of film this was when they were making it. Is it a romantic comedy type film, or is it a funny action film? And thinking about it from a sort of cynical point of view, I wonder if it was more about how they could appeal to both boys and girls. The boys can laugh at the jokes and the action stuff is just so cool, man. And the girls can have the cringy lovey-dovey stuff and oh my god, doesn't he look dreamy while he tames a horse. And it's just kind of like, eh. There's also this wedding plot line where Ursula is supposed to marry this guy called Lyle, who I forgot to mention earlier, but it's like, who fucking cares, man? Just get back to the silly jungle man saving people. I mean, you start this film and he's wrestling a fucking lion and there's a gorilla that sounds like John Cleese. But then an hour later we're having Ursula's mum telling George how he'll never be able to be with Ursula, like it's some kind of Disney princess bullshit. Like, that shit works for Tarzan, but this film should have been, in essence, a comedy superhero action film. This film should have been the Naked Gun of Tarzan, but it's just a mess. I know it's aimed at children, but in my opinion that doesn't excuse it from being able to entertain all ages. That's what elevates something from being just labelled as a kids film. The film works when we get moments like George mailing himself back to Africa and the obvious product placement, and then later on when they have to call on the other gorillas to fight the mercenaries. Well, I suppose that would have been a good moment if we'd actually fucking seen it. I mean, come on man, you gave us 10 minutes of George acting like a prat in San Francisco, and we don't get to see a big gorilla and human punch up. What the fuck, man? Plus the John Cleese gorilla, which is actually a pretty good costume by the way, could have just ripped the arms off those two geezers at any time. But also the big climax of the film when he has to do the big long swing and he confronts his fear but obviously hits a tree, but it all ties nicely together because his flaw ends up becoming the thing that beats the bad guy and saves the day. These moments all stand out and are what the film should have been. They're silly and self-aware, kind of funny in a childish sort of way, but entertaining enough. And it genuinely feels like the last 20 minutes brings back some of that energy that the film began with. I said earlier that the film was almost like a cartoon come to life, but to be honest, maybe the film should have just been that. All the good stuff in this would have made an excellent 30 to 45 minute sort of cartoon or TV movie that leads into an animated series, which I think this did eventually become, but you know, everything had an animated series back then. There's something annoying about this, not just the sensory overload, but because somewhere in this is a really enjoyable, silly action film for kids, but it never reaches that potential. This could have been another Ace Ventura, but instead it turned into Ace Ventura Jr. Overall, despite my bitching and moaning, it is a harmless film, and it'll probably still keep kids entertained these days. And honestly, I watched this about 237 times when I was a kid, and I was fucking cringing at myself, remembering how much I used to quote this film all the time.
George, George, George of the jungle, friend to you and me.
But I suppose I only really watched this as an excuse to go back in time and forget how every day feels like we're drawing ever closer to our annihilation. The bad guys these films made us believe could never triumph over the good seem to be marching their way into our everyday life. The comfort that the make-believe could never be reality seems to have been washed away and replaced with the uncertainty of what could be the next world-changing event. Films like these are a bit like old photographs. While we see the smiling faces, old photographs come with that bittersweet feeling that the person staring back at you still maintains their innocence and naivety of the world before it's dragged out of them and forcibly replaced with the burden and responsibility of a life that comes with the motto, "That's just the way it is." The dream has faded away. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed my little existential crisis. I'll have some more videos soon, hopefully. And till then, take care of yourself, and I will see you again.